So once inside, I was in this room about 5 meters square. There was people milling round, guards, special police. I was searched by the TSB, that's the Tamil Nadu police. They bring them up from Tamil Nadu because they say that they are not as corrupt as the ordinary ones. But there you go, that was something else. Anyway, they took me tie, took me belt, my wallet, jewellery, money, cigarettes, and put me in a corridor. For about an hour, I sat in this corridor, just sitting on the floor. And then I was called to go into another room where there were people just sitting around, reading papers, talking. And there was one guy in a doctor's coat. He said, you have medical. I said, okay. So he took my height, which at that time was 5'9", and that's a bit relevant for the future. And my weight, which was about 87 kilos, and my father's name. And I said, my father's been dead for nearly 30 years. Why do you want my father? And they said, just give me your father's name. So I give him my father's name, and that was that. Then I was led out through another gate into the actual jail, and it was a bit strange, you know, because we walked out into a road and there was big trees everywhere, flowers planted, and I thought, oh, you know, this doesn't look too bad. Anyway, we walked up and we got to this ward, and there were 600 people in this ward in 3 barracks, roughly 200 in each. And they took me to the first barrack, opened the door. I looked down this long corridor and it was just full of bodies, just laid on the floor next to each other. And I walked up the corridor, stepping over these bodies with this convict by the side of me. And then I saw a door to the left and there was another 50 in there. A bit further on, there was another door to the left. There was another 50 in there. And then a bit further on, this convict stopped, spoke something to these guys on the floor, and they squeezed up, and I squeezed in between them. Still in my suit, shirt, you know. So I sat there with me head on my knees thinking, what's going on? What's going on? And then I just started sobbing. I'm not one to cry like, you know, but that night I sobbed my heart out. Everything was going through my mind, my wife, my kids, all my material stuff that I had in Goa, guitars, my favourite 1970 50-watt Marshall combi amp. All these things was going through my mind, and I just couldn't get my head around it, you know. So the sobbing continued for some time. And when I eventually stopped, I lifted my head up and I looked around. Nobody was taking a blind bit of notice. Nobody. One thing I will say in Tihar, the lights are kept on all night, every night. And these lights were fluorescent, so it was like daylight where we were. And I thought, this is strange. Anyway, I eventually got off to sleep. And 5 o'clock in the morning, they opened up the gates, they let us outside, and I sat outside on the dirt floor. Didn't have a clue what was going on. There was no induction, you see. There was a board with the times from 5:30 in the morning till 9 o'clock at night, all written in Hindi, and I didn't speak or understood Hindi. Anyway, 6 o'clock, a guy comes with some tea in a big container, and I had nothing. And anyway, some guy came up to me and he gave me an empty glue pot, but a half a litre empty glue pot. and he just said chai. So I got in the queued up for the tea, and it was delicious. Oh, I loved it. It was so nice, so refreshing. I hadn't eaten since the Monday, I think. This is now the Wednesday, and I hadn't had a drink since yesterday morning, so it was more than welcome. A bit later on, another guy turns up with a bin full of boiled potatoes and bread. So I gets in the queue, and when I gets there, I just hold out my hand, and he puts his slice of bread in my hand, which is about 3 inches square. Puts his hand into this potato, put it on my bread, slapped another one on top, and that was my breakfast. And I munched it down. It was very tasty. That's all I can say. It was really nice. And then about 8 o'clock, a convict in white came up to me and gave me a brush, pointed to the floor to start sweeping. By this time the sun was well up and it was getting warm. And this yard that I was in was probably about 60 square meters. And I'm thinking, I can't clean this floor. And he just kept going on about it. So I started sweeping the floor, and then after about 10 minutes, I must have had 20 people in a circle stood around me watching, talking, some having a little giggle and whatever. I thought, fuck this for a game of soldiers. Threw the brush down and just walked off, sat in a corner and started sobbing again. I had no control over this, you know. I was obviously crying for myself, for the situation I was in. But that's how it was. And that was my first day in Tihar.